As you heard when Mark was sharing, our family has been blessed. Blessed? Yes. 3 companies that Mark talked about, but 7 companies on the stock exchange in total. And the only person to ever own 3 sports franchises, Major League sports franchises, at the same time. In addition, he has 4 children. I got to be one of them. I got better as I got older, fortunately, but it's been an incredible time. I'm not going to talk a lot about what he's done. Many of you, being from the Midwest and whatnot, are familiar with my pop or from being down here. But what I want to share with you is a few things that you might not know. One of the things was that when my father proposed to my mother, he was broke. My mom told me that he was so poor, in fact, that he sold his old pickup truck to buy her engagement ring. So he really was a self-starter. Little did he know at that time that the marriage to my mother would lead to him getting a bank loan and him getting a little venture capital from my mother's father to buy his first garbage truck. He bought an old garbage truck from an African-American man in Fort Lauderdale in the 50s and started a company called Southern Sanitation. He's a little bit of a marketing genius, I think, and on the side of his truck he had these big red trucks, and on the side of the truck he had these wooden panels on the side, and it said things like, "We cater weddings." My mother, now Dad won't admit to this, but my mother says that it said in the beginning, because we were from Chicago, "We cater Polish weddings." And he says, no, I never said that, but I tend to believe my mother. It said, "Caution, this truck has bad breath, and only in South Florida free snow removal." Well, he went on to grow that company and combine it with a company my uncle was running up in Michigan and Chicagoland area to create waste management. Mom would tell me stories of Dad and how driven he was when they were young, and he's driven even now, but especially when he was young, that he'd get up early in the morning and he had a part-time helper and they'd drive the garbage truck and pick up the garbage. He'd come home at lunchtime, take a great shower and put on clean clothes and then go out and solicit new business to build the company. And it went on to become very successful, the largest waste hauler in the world. She'd tell me stories about going with him. He parked the garbage truck in a little gravel lot, she said, just around the corner from the house. And it was old, it didn't run all the time, and she'd say they'd go there sometimes at night, and she'd be tasked with holding the flashlight while Dad worked on the truck to try to make it run again. She told me stories about the land crabs that she said were as big as dinner plates, honey. And she said you could hear them dragging their body over the rocks, and it just gave me the chills, she'd say. She'd quiver when she'd tell me the stories. And she'd tell me stories about palmetto bugs. You know, that's what we call, Southerners call roaches. You know, palmetto bugs as big as sparrows, she'd say. They were, honey, I'm telling you, they were as big as sparrows. And they'd fly at me, and I'd move the light, and your dad would yell, "Hold the light, Joyce, hold the light." And, okay, all right. So she painted an incredibly vivid picture of Dad in his younger years, and he's just been incredibly driven. He is my pop, but he's also my hero, and I love him very much. I worked for Waste Management all my life. I started when I was 12. I got my first official paycheck from Waste Management. I tell people that I grew up at the landfill, and everybody laughs at me, but it was true. I did. And I'd come down and visit my pop, and he was always busy working, so my grandfather would take me, and he worked at the landfill, and he'd drop me off, and I'd ride heavy equipment around all summer long, and I had a ball. I remember being in, I guess I was young. I was 5 years old, and my mother we grew up in the Dutch Reformed Church, and many of you probably know, but for anybody that's not familiar, I like to say that you've got the Baptists over here, and then the Dutch Reformed were over a little further to the right. You know, and any of you that are familiar, you'll appreciate that. And we went to a little church in Pompano, and my mother decided that she was going to divorce my father. Both wonderful people. I love them both very much, but Mom was not happy. And she told me the story that she went to the pastor, and she told the pastor, and he told her, "Hey, listen, this is the Dutch Reformed Church. No divorce. You know, it's just not a possibility." She said, "I'm very unhappy, and I'm gonna divorce my husband." And he told her at that time that she could no longer be a part of the church. Really kind of kicked her out of the church. And you know, it hurt her very badly at a time when she really needed her faith most. She was kind of disassociated from it. So anybody that's been harmed or hurt by someone from the church, you know what? That's not really God. He loves us all despite our shortcomings. And so I'd like to apologize to anybody that's been hurt. by someone with good intentions, but through the church. Well, she took my brother and I, and we moved from sunny Florida. We moved to Chicago. I lived in Chicago for 8 years with my brother, and needless to say, during that time, we didn't go to much church. Mom was kind of angry still, and we went there enough to Christmas and Easter, and I'd go with my grandparents sometimes. I went to a little bit of Sunday school there and whatnot, enough to hear that there was a God and that he had a son named Jesus. I heard about heaven, and of course in the Dutch Reformed Church I heard about the alternative, and it scared the tar out of me as a kid, you know, the way they told the story. So I said, hey, I want that heaven thing. Yeah, I'm there. Okay, so unfortunately as Dad became more and more successful and I became older, most like most young people, most sons especially, I wanted to follow in my father's footsteps. I wanted to be just like Dad. I wanted to have the influence that he had and be able to do things for people like he could. I wanted the power that he had. I wanted the 1971 split window Riviera that he pulled up at the house with one day, you know, and everybody's, what is that? And, you know, the big boat tail and all. I got one of those, but yeah. Anyway, I wanted all the things that he had. And so I went on, and as I grew, my mom would try to tell me about God, and I'd listen, but my mind was really, hey, I want to be like Pop. I went on to college. I got out of college. And actually, while I was still in college, he came to see me. And they called up on the dorm phone, you know, no cell phones then. And, yeah, hey, your dad's on the phone. And, yeah, hey, he says, can I come down and see you? I said, sure, Pop, it'd be great to see you. Yeah, it'd be great. I'll see you next day. All right. And hung up the phone, and I'm thinking, well, it's too early for grades. You can't have seen those yet. So what's he coming down for? All right, it'll be fine. Don't worry about it. And I remember we went and we sat on a bench over by the water, and he told me that he was retiring from waste management. So I joked with my wife, I said I had my midlife crisis early on, honey. And because like I said, I had worked for waste management all my life, and I knew one day that I was going to work at waste management. And he looked at me and said, what's the matter? I said, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. And he said, well, you can still work at Waste. You know, we still know a lot of people there, son. And I looked at him and I said, you know, Pop, but it wouldn't be the same because you're not there. And he paused for a second, and then he said, you know, son, we weren't exactly going to work together. Yeah, I was the CEO, and you were going to be someplace else. And I was like, yeah, I understand that, but you were going to be there. Well, and then another year and a half went by, and I got out of college, and just after I got out of college, Dad got involved with Blockbuster Video, and I got to work with him again there, which was wonderful, and I bought some of the stock, and the stock went through the roof, over 3,000% increase over the time that he was involved with the company, those 8 years. And when he sold to Viacom, they sold for $8.1 billion. Which was one of the largest stock transaction sales in the U.S. history. Needless to say, I made a lot of money. Money that I didn't deserve, money that I didn't earn, and money that I really didn't know what to do with. During that same time, I married my childhood sweetheart. We had dated when I was 15, and I had 2 beautiful children. And my mom would come to me and she would say, hey, honey, you know, this is great, no, but I'm worried about you. I said, what are you worried about, Mom? She said, well, you've got 2 beautiful children, and the life that you're leading is great, but it's really not like the rest of the world lives. And I'm very concerned about how you're going to ground your children and teach them values and all. And I said, all right, well, what do you think? And she said, well, I think you need to start going to church. I hear you, Mom, all right. And so I kept finding excuses every time she'd bring it up. And I said, well, you know, Mom, I'm working 6 days a week and whatnot. And then on Sunday's really my only day off. And what I didn't have the heart to tell her is I've been out all night on Saturday. And, you know, Sunday morning, the last place I want to be hungover is at church. You know, it's just not something you tell your mother. But God had a plan. My bride, 21 years, she always says that God's timing is perfect. And it was, because little did I know that my life was about to change dramatically. About that time, my mother got sick. We thought that she had bronchitis, a really bad case. We kept taking her to the doctor, and they'd give her antibiotics and whatnot, but she really wasn't getting any better. She kept getting weaker and weaker, and my beautiful bride, she said, honey, why don't we move Mom's in with us for a while until she gets better? I said, well, we can do that? She said, Absolutely, we can. And Mom moved in and we started going to different doctors, and they started to talk about the potential of cancer because Mom was a smoker for many, many years. And we kept saying, well, I don't know, and they did a biopsy and they did another biopsy and they couldn't find it. But eventually she got so sick that the doctor said, listen, we don't know what's in there. It's not testing positive for cancer, but it must be some kind of an infection. We need to take half of your mother's left lung out. It's like, geez, that's like a big deal. They said, otherwise it's going to kill her. All right. So Mom went in and had the surgery, and the doctor comes out, and you always want to see the happy doctor face. He didn't have the happy doctor face, and he came down, and I said, how did it go? He said, well, we took your mother's left lung out. I said, no, we were supposed to take half out. He said, well, we found cancer in there. I said, great, then you got it all. Well, I said, come on. He said, well, we could talk in the office. I said, no, I want to know now. He said, well, we found cancer in her adrenal gland and some of her other internal organs, and in hindsight, those spots that we saw on her PET scan in her brain, those are probably cancerous tumors, Mets. I said, all right, how long? Well, we can talk. No, come on. How long? 3 or 4 months. All right. As tough a time as that was, I look back and it's some of the best times that I've ever had with my mom. And she was an incredible mother, single mother, but nonetheless an incredible mom. I got to serve her like she served me. We went to chemotherapy together, we tried that. She had to have radiation because they said she'd lose the ability to speak. And with Mom, that was not an option. She loved to talk. So we went to radiation. We prayed together. We sung hymns together. A voice, obviously, that only a mother could love. And we shared with people that no matter what happened, we didn't believe that it was the end. That she loved God, God loved her, and sent his son Jesus to die on the cross so that she could have forgiveness and have a personal relationship with him. And that I had had the same personal relationship. And so while it was a difficult time, it was a special time with a son and a mother. She died one day after her 63rd birthday, 12 years ago. But that wasn't it. A month later, I lost my grandpa, Dad's dad. He was a huge part of my life, loved the Lord very much, and I used to go to church with him because I knew if I went, we'd talk about stories of being at the landfill when I was a kid, and I loved that more than anything else because they were special times. But that wasn't it. Shortly thereafter, I lost my cousin Dan. He and I were the same age, and he committed suicide. And shortly thereafter, my best friends, they lost their child, Fonda and I's godson, Dylan, died from heart disease at age 2. You see, when we talk about God having a plan and his timing being perfect, I really believe it. Because the old Junior, he had borrowed Dad's plane, flown somewhere and gotten on the boat, and gotten in the bottle. And I wouldn't have been there for my mom's. I wouldn't have been there when my brother came in and said, Junior, Mom's dead. It's all right, pal. She's in heaven. For my children, where's Grammy's? She's in heaven, guys. It'll be all right. You'll see her again. For my dad, when he came and said, Junior, you did a pretty good job eulogizing your mom. For him, that's like a big compliment. My wife says he packs a tight suitcase. He said, do you think you can eulogize Papa? Because I don't think that I can do it. Yeah, Dad, I got this power. I don't know where it came from, but yeah. For my cousin, when she called us up and said, Dan killed himself. Can you come out and tell his friends why it happened and help make sense of this? I said, I can come out and talk to them. I don't know why, but I can tell them what we hope and where I hope that he is. And for our best friends when they lost their 2-year-old son. The old Junior would have run, but God gave me the power to be a different person. And that's when I realized that it wasn't about how much you had, it was about who you had living in your heart. Don't get me wrong, all of you here are wealthy, and it's wonderful to be able to buy nice things and do great things and do things for others, and I still do that. I'm still driven in business, but just with a different purpose. I realized then that true wealth was the day that you opened your heart up, asked Jesus to forgive you of your sins, and to live in your heart. And you stopped worrying about wealth here on earth, and you started building treasures in heaven.